right, guys, this is our episode 4 coverage of Andor season 2. We didn't really predict anything. I think everybody knew. We got a time jump. It's BBY 3 now, so it's a 1-year time jump between the end of episode 3 where we pick up on episode 4. The game board is completely changed. This is like an all new. These really are going to feel like movies, I think.
Yeah,
a whole new set of circumstances. Of course, we have character carryover. They didn't really introduce anybody major new besides the people on the Gorman front, but I mean they're kind of bit players. You know what I mean? Our main cast is still our main cast, so I thought that's kind of cool to see them a year later. But the world has changed, and I think they did a pretty good job picking up where they left off episode 3 a year later. Like there's some logical fallout, especially with Bix. I think that's going to be a nasty thrust that wrapped up nicely in episode 6, but I don't think she's out of the woods yet. But what did you think of episode 4 overall? Did you think it picked up where it left off nicely, or was it too jarring, too broken?
One of the things I really like about this series is that it keeps you embedded in the timeline, and they use the official timeline markers, which is BBY. I mean, even we use an official marker. We have BC and AD. I'm not doing that BCE crap. It is BC and AD. It's been that for thousands of years. It's going to stay that for thousands of more years. And I like that they have the mark as the Battle of Yavin. I think that is a good mark in the Star Wars. It's where they destroy the first Death Star. I think that is a good mark. That's when the rebellion actually becomes a viable threat to the Empire.
Oh yeah, they're on the map right then and there. And I think you're right about marking it on the screen for you at the beginning of the episode. It's like stamp. Here you are. Here's the timestamp in the video description. It's basically that. It's telling you exactly where it's picking up. So I like that as well.
And it's during the next one will be 2, and then it'll be 1, and then it'll be like then you go into Rogue One.
Yep. That's kind of funny. You want to throw like a quick prediction how the last episode of Andor season 2 ends? Like we know how it slides into from Rogue One into A New Hope. How do you think this is going to wrap up and slide into the beginning of Rogue One?
I think it would be cool if we pick up right where he's walking with that guy, or he does the job with the guy he kills at the beginning of Rogue One.
All right, dude, that's pretty slick. I forgot about that. They probably will do that.
Right into the New Hope at the end of Rogue One. I think it would be the perfect slide into Rogue One if they did that. And
just to roll it back to like what we're talking about here, they kind of already hint that Andor has definitely progressed to the point where those kind of things are happening. Where the reason he's super hyper protective of Bix isn't specifically because of her capture and her torture or the SA scene from the previous episode. It's because they were doing a job in that in-between section between chapters 1 and 2, where their cover was blown, apparently, and an Imperial soldier saw her face, and Andor had to go ahead and put him down.
And it was a boy, so someone of younger guy.
Yeah. So there was some depth to that part there, which I think is a nice touch.
So it got me thinking when I was watching the first episode. I'm like, at some point, Bix has to die.
Why so?
Because
we don't see her in Rogue One.
Because one, she's not in Rogue One, and 2, he gets romantically interested in the girl in Rogue One.
Oh, and Jin. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
but that doesn't mean she has to die. It could just mean she leaves the rebellion. It means that she finds someone else.
I think she dies.
It would make dies. Weak as hell.
And I think her and Luthen Rail are going to sacrifice themselves.
Yeah. I had that thought about Luthen myself earlier as I was kind of reviewing who he is through season 1 and what we've seen of him so far. And I really tried to dig into some of those epic level speeches that he's like, and those retorts that he gives sometimes about sacrifice and duty. And he had a banger of a line in one of these 3 episodes somewhere. I think it was in this one where he visits Bix. Was this the one where he visits Bix in the?
No, that would be episode 5.
Okay, I'll hold off on that then. But he had a great line that he delivered to her about what it means, what the struggle really means, and like what the purpose is. I could totally see him Rogue One-ing himself right into a reactor explosion or something crazy. If there's no other options, he's obviously the chess master, the spy master. He's not trying to expose himself to risk because he actually. The puppet master. I just used like 3 masters in like no time. The only thing I didn't do was like the PGA masters and that one other kind of master, but we're not talking about that. It's distasteful. But they did a lot of stuff here. I think one of the coolest things they did here, and I'm going to give them credit because they rolled back on one of my big complaints from the first 3 episodes, where how we initially get to Chandrilla and they over invested, in my opinion, in developing that culture, that world building. We had a big old segment on that with all the wedding stuff and kind of the customs and things. When we get to Gorman, right away, I like the setting because it straight up felt like it was out of like a World War II movie with like Resistance France or Resistance Italy.
That's exactly
as
the same vibe I
building.
got was the French Resistance.
Exactly. Even the music felt very, very French peasantry building kind of thing, like secret compartments. Did I guarantee they do some Anne Frank shit at some point? You know, because I don't think we're done on Gorman in 7.
No, I think Gorman's going to be the point of interest during this whole thing, like Phelix was in season 1.
So I think we're going to get people hiding in basements, Inglorious Bastard style or something. At one point or another, they're going to do that. So I like that entire vibe. They even went so far as to capture like the color scheme of those old movies, all the muted colors that the Resistance guys and gals were wearing, like the beiges and the browns, the boots,
beret,
the vest, the beret, right? Some of their accents were heavily French, right? They weren't really hiding it.
Even the architecture of like the city and stuff has a very French feel to it. Like they're trying to put you in France.
Oh, dude. A mission accomplished on that one. They nailed that. But they took it a step further for me, like I was just starting this segment up. They rolled back the amount of, hey, look at us. This is a different planet, a different culture kind of thing. Like like when you have greetings and departures where they kind of touch the chest and wave out. And then at the public meeting, the one guy that was kind of really riling up against the Empire building that armory, he gave him the whole hand on the forearm, which is only a minor, a little different than the one we use. A little bit. It's 25% different as Star Wars is fond of doing. But like, that's what I was talking about that was overdone in those first 3, where they way oversold on the music, the dance, the ritual. And I get that it was a wedding, but it was still too much. Here, they grounded a couple of little things, a little bit about the history with like the great houses of the designers, the fabric making, the Webberies. I'm like, okay, these were little bits and pieces here, there, everywhere. That's all I needed, dude, because now I know what Gorman is. I know Gorman now, like I know Tatooine, like I know Hoth. Very effective. What did you think of the rest of the World War II vibe there?
Yeah, I liked the way they built Gorman. Like they gave us the video that kind of introduced the planet back in the chapter 1. Here in chapter 2, it's just they're moving forward. Like the blockade's already there. You have the tragedy that happened when Grand Moff Tarkin showed up. They dropped his name, and there was a huge massacre, which you'll find out more about that in a later episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm liking how it's built, how they have like listening devices, because you have that in this first one.
Yep.
And
that's
now
let
me talk to you about this. I know these are your 2 most hated characters in the whole series.
So let me stop you right there. The first note is, did I not ask for Mom to be gone?
But sitting there listening to their conversation, I'm like, he's doing that on purpose. Yeah. Like the way the lines he's dropping, like I see no threat here on Gorman and stuff like that. That would not be Serial's comment, because he sees threats in everything.
Everywhere. All right. This is as far as I'm willing to go. I like what they're having Cyril do, especially when you get through episode 6 and they have a really sinister reveal at his expense, or a pending sinister situation for him. It's the mother-son dynamic that just nails on a chalkboard for me still. And they double down on that in episode 5. We'll get to that in the episode 5 review. But I like the setup of him. He's been disgraced from Coruscant's Office of Weight and Measure. So now he's out in the middle of East Bum. Actually, it's not East Bum, it's Gorman.
It's Gorman.
That's a lucrative. Yeah,
and he got promoted. Like he's actually a leader.
Yeah,
it was just she's reading into the propaganda of like how bad Gorman is, and he's like, it's actually kind of nice here. I'm in charge. I have my own office. It's just a remote office, and she's like, it's not Coruscant.
I had you here. I fixed it. Oy vey. Like, dude, all that was missing was the oy vey. Like, honestly, that's like the whole time. I'm like, all right, I get what they're doing here. They're setting up something interesting. We get a little bit more, when he makes the secret phone call to Daedra, and you're like, oh, snap. So he's like a mole, or they're setting him up to be a mole inside the Gorman front and the effing front. The best, I think my favorite part of this entire arc, and it starts right away in episode 4, is how gleefully incompetent the Gorman front is, because when you were talking about those jackass guerrilla fighter being like the cannon fodder level 0 NPCs, I'm like, crap, this dude might actually have been right, because they're so pathetically inept on this planet with how to run their resistance. They're like, Andor tells them no. He's like, nah, we can't throw down with them.
And that's in the next episode.
Yeah. Oh, blew it. Yeah, all right, that's right.
Yeah.
But he showed up there and did the assessment though, right?
Not in the first episode. He was given the mission.
That's right. He's given the mission. That's right.
Yeah, and he asked, "Can I take bits with me?" He's like, "No, this is what you got to do on your own."
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's how the episode ended.
We get the right. This one's all about the setup of the resistance, the prominent dressmaker, the lead guy of the house holding the town meeting. You can see the crowds roil into a boil. Like shit's about to pop off one way or another on this planet. The only difference is how many people die or how many people don't. You know, but even that town hall scene was great. Again, it had different people compared to Last of Us, how we just did that episode that had a big town hall scene. It's different people with different opinions, but none of them are wrong. Like they all have different levels of like passion and point that they're trying to get across to like their elected officials. Nobody acted like, nobody hammed it up. Like it felt authentically done. And whatever my total thoughts on this show will be, at least I know professionals worked on it and put it together.
Yeah.
At the very least, that's still clear. You know?
I think this was a good episode to start off chapter 2. It's that introductory paragraph, you could say, that puts you back into the world. One, because there's a time jump, so you need to be put back in the world. You're going to have this with each one of these weekly drops, is that you're going to have that first one that's going to put you back in the world in the time frame that they're at and what's going on. Like I said, because we're going to see a time jump like this. They warned us beforehand. Tony Gilroy told us going in why he was making it, that there are going to be significant time jumps throughout this the season. So it's just something you have to be prepared for. And I think they're doing a great job of handling that.
I think they are too. And there's a lot of plot that they get through fairly quickly in this one episode too. Like we've already talked 10 minutes on this show, and we haven't even gotten to about 4 subplots that are on there. With Mon Mothma losing support in the Senate, like it's already starting. We can see votes slipping away from her position of opposition to the Emperor. Like people, like allies, are like, you're confusing security with criminality at one point, and everybody's finding a reason not to stand. And it culminates, with the great scene of her in a later episode, like walking out. We'll get to that. We get a catch up kind of on the plot arc of Luthen interviewing his spy within the ISB, Lonnie. Yeah, dude with the red hair and the stash. They recreate the kind of hallway scene where Lonnie takes the elevator up.
Yeah.
And Luthen just stands there in like that straight up Empire Strikes Back background. That's 100% right off of Empire. I love that. And there's a couple of more too. We get the kid that was with Brasso and them on Rebel Moon World, Wilmon. He's been turfed to Saw Gerrera's team.
That was until episode 2.
Really?
Yep.
No, I got
because that was the end. That was the end of episode 2.
Breaking Bad New Lab. I think they have scenes in all 3. They set him up with the lab in this one. The second one is where he's training the dude, and isn't the third one where the big thing goes down? I swear I had that on the right page.
The third one is he's training him and the big thing goes down. The second one is he's there with Force Whitaker's cast and crew.
Huh. Oh, I jumped that on the wrong page then. Yeah, well, anyway, so that's a plot. But anyway, in this block of episodes, that's another subplot that's going on. And then, of course, another very quiet subplot, kind of like attached to Bix already, is the drug use, which I thought was a really interesting touch because, that Luthen Rail follows up on that. Andor even follows up with that at one point in a later episode. I think that's going to have more repercussions than we see through 4, 5, and 6. I don't think we're done with that yet. So
I think that's what's going to lead to her downfall and eventual death.
Maybe she makes a mistake somewhere along the line or realizes she made a mistake and had a guilty moment. Because this show's not past, people self-deleting. Let's be honest. It's dark enough to go there. And they can do the SA, they can do the SI.
Not including that once a drug gets a hold of you, even though you let go, it might not let go of you.
Right. Oh, dude. Yeah, no. She'd be chasing the space dragon for years. But yeah, dude, I think this is, if we're judging it as an episode, I think it was a strong episode for the series. It's a great reintroduction, as a first episode in a second chapter of a second season. The timeline's flowing nicely. It is a little slow. There's not a lot of pew pew, but this show isn't about the pew pew. Never has been.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
think
enough
the
interesting
whole
stuff going
chapter is kind of a little slower than the first chapter.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's really only like 2 important shots fired in the entire 3-episode run, really, that I can think of anyway. But no, I thought this was a good starting point. It sounds like you agree. You thought this was a good starting
Oh yeah,
point
this is a
also.
great starting point for the chapter. It was it did its job of bringing us back into the timeline that they're currently in.
And the only other thing I forgot from the note that I wanted to throw on there was we do get another one of those ISB boardroom scenes that we both like.
Yes,
with Partagast. I like me some Partagast. I like the
Yeah.
old man. I like I'm not going to call him Darth Qyburn from Game of
Yeah,
Thrones.
this is the one where he was like, "What is the problem?" He's like, "There's so many different problems." He's like, "Name one."
Dude, and that's every good boss.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's every good boss, honestly.
Yeah, because it was almost like he was just like sucking up to him the way he was like talking in vague terms, and then he's like, "Name one," and then finally the other guy, or Luthen's boy, steps up. He's like, "We're arresting too many people. We can't process them all."
Explain, and then he goes into a little bit more detail, and he's like, "Okay, this is my guy here." I like that. That's a good setup scene too, because as we'll see in episode 5 when we talk, that same suck up has another scene with Partagast when he approaches them out in the hallway.
Yeah,
and Partagast assigns him something, and he said, "Oh my god, thank you, sir, to be an honor." And Partagast like, "Dude, it's a job.
Yeah,
like cool your jets, young blood. Like get over yourself." Kind of funny. Cool.
Curb your enthusiasm.
Yeah, I know, right? He all but said it. All right, dude. I think we covered episode 4. I'm already forgetting what number it was. Why don't we pull up the flavor guide? I like the flavor guide, dude. This is gonna be our jam for a while. All right, and you are in the B seat, so that means you get to pick first. How do we do this week with episode 4 of Andor season 2?
B for better. So I am going to take the pit master on this one. As I said, it's a great introduction to a new chapter. It's going to set up the whole rest of the chapter, and I think it does exactly what it needs to do. It doesn't need to be too flashy. It doesn't need to be too in depth. It tells you exactly where everybody's at this current moment, and then it will proceed and everything ties together nicely. So this is the type of episode you need to do something like that to hold a 3 episode arc and stuff.
All right. I'm going to come in a little lower, but not much. I'm going to come in low and slow, but I'm going to give it the 7. I'm going to go on the high side of that. A little bit of sauce might have been needed just to kind of perk things up. I'm all right with the slow build, but there is a point where it just does kind of drag in the middle. Maybe a slightly more menacing Imperial presence up front. They didn't have to get actively, pew pew with the blasters, but maybe they could have harassed maybe the people protesting in the town center. I think something's going to pop off there. By the way, I didn't include that. I think something ugly is going to repeat some Tarkin-like stuff that we talked about in a later episode. But I think maybe if there was just a little bit more menace there, because as it is, we don't see the Empire do Empire stuff in this episode or anywhere in this block to anybody except Cyril. And then, I think that's it. So they're kind of absent, even though they're present. They're just building the fortress, and that's it. So I got to take a little bit off, but again, not bad. 7's a good score. It's a good place to be. Just look at this chart. You just need a little bit of sauce, cooking low and slow. I think that'll do it for me. You're gonna go with the 7 on that.
All right. Well, we'll see you in the next one.